During the May Day holiday, my roommates decided it would be funny to act like rich girls, and got into character the second we got in an Uber. I knew better than to show off in front of strangers, so I tried to smooth things over, telling the driver, Andrew Houston, that they were just joking. The moment my roommates' act fell apart, they flushed red with embarrassment and got out of the car. I didn't get the chance to follow. Andrew locked the doors and grabbed me. "Since you helped them out, you can pay the price for them," he said, smiling in a way that made my stomach drop. What followed was something I barely survived. I made it back to the city by sheer luck, and went straight to the police. During the investigation, my roommates turned on me without hesitation. She jumped into the front seat the second we got in. What do you think she was after, exactly? And after we got out, she stayed behind. Obviously she wanted something exciting with the driver. Their words didn't stay in that room. Andrew's wife heard them. She dragged me by the hair, screaming that I was a homewrecker. Then put all my personal information online. Strangers I had never met piled on, calling me shameless, saying I got what I deserved. Andrew took it further. He sent my nude photos to my mother. She couldn't handle it. She had a heart attack and died on the spot. Not long after, I followed. In the end, my roommates used my death to secure guaranteed admission to graduate school, milling like they had won. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in that Uber right at the moment they started playing rich. Gosh, this car is ancient. Even our maid wouldn't ride in something like this. The moment I opened my eyes, Sadie Thornton's soft voice hit me, edged with open disdain. And this seat cushion. What is this even made of? My dog's bed is softer than this. Across from me, Lily and Clark yanked the cushion free, pinched her nose, and tossed it at her feet. Seriously, I wouldn't even use this as a footrest. It's filthy. My phone buzzed. Sadie was still pushing them in the group chat. This driver looks like the type who bullies the weak and sucks up to anyone with money. Out here, you are whatever you say you are. Keep it up, girls. Lean into the rich girl act. The scene in front of me overlapped perfectly with what I remembered from before. Last time, I had stepped in because I was worried their act would get us into trouble. I tried to smooth things over. They turned on me for it, dumped me in the Uber, and ignored me when I begged for help. Not this time. This time I wasn't stopping them. Andrew Husted's expression darkened almost at once. He let out a short, tight laugh. "Miss, if you dirty it, you'll have to pay for it. How much could a stupid cushion cost?" Lillian shot back, her tone full of contempt. "Do you even know how much my carpets cost per square foot? You couldn't afford it on a month's pay." "Exactly. Only people like you care about a few dozen bucks." Daphne Winthrop, sitting in the middle, leaned forward and pointed at the bottle of cheap mineral water by Andrew's hand. "Ha! You actually drink this stuff? Don't you worry about getting sick?" Their performance was so over the top that it made my stomach tighten. I glanced out the window, scanning the road as my thoughts raced. It was getting dark. I needed to get out of this car. And fast. Couldn't let them drag me down with them. Andrew's hand tightened around the bottle, his neck going stiff, but he didn't say anything. He just kept driving. "People like him don't have much going for them," Sadie said, lips curling. "Of course. They drink whatever is cheapest. Unlike us. We only drink Orel flown in from Monterre." Daphne smiled, eyes narrowing. "Sadie, stop. He probably doesn't even know what Orel is." "True. People at his level wouldn't understand." The three of them laughed loud and sharp, filling the car. The wind coming through the window felt colder by the second. I tightened my grip on the seatbelt, a plan starting to take shape before Andrew could respond. I spoke first. "Don't take it too far." All three of them turned to look at me, caught off guard for a moment. Sadie recovered first, glancing at me sideways. "Mabel, are you defending him?" "Figures. Your family's from the countryside, too, right? I heard your family raises pigs. No wonder you always smell like manure." Daphne curled her lip, looking at me with thinly veiled pity. Even without pretending, their backgrounds were still far better than mine. "Huh. Guess you and the driver are the same kind of people," she said. "You two probably have a lot in common." "Yeah," Lillian added with a laugh. "Like raising pigs." Their laughter overlapped. I bit my lower lip, letting my expression tighten like I had been hurt. "Say whatever you want about me, but don't drag the driver into it. He works hard every day just to support his family." "Support his family?" Lillian raised a brow, amused. Sadie leaned forward and kicked the back of Andrew's seat. "Hey, old man. You're this. It's broke. You even have a wife and kids." Andrew let out a low, cold laugh and pressed harder on the gas. I turned just in time to see the car shift lanes. At the same moment, my phone kept vibrating in my hand. He was off route. My breath hitched. My chest tightening as if my heart might break through it. There was no time to think. I grabbed Andrew's phone, woke the screen, and turned it toward them. Of course he has a family look. Small, bright photo filled the display. A family of 3 smiling at the camera. Andrew looked younger enough to place it years back. The child stood out immediately. With his pale skin and white hair. In my last life. I learned later that Andrew's son had a rare genetic condition. He couldn't afford treatment. And the boy died at 6. So his son was his biggest trigger. Sadie raised a brow and took the phone from me. Her tone dripping with contempt. What kind of cheap phone is this? The screen's so blurry. She leaned in. Then wrinkled her nose. Wow. This kid's ugly. Looks like an alien. Andrew snapped his head around. His face twisting. What did you just say? The car jerked, swerving hard enough that it nearly hit a roadside pole. Sadie screamed and threw the phone. What's wrong with you? Can you even drive? Daphne grabbed the back of the seat. Still shaken, anger rising fast. You scared me half to death. All we did was look at your phone. Yeah, Lillian added. Smoothing her hair, her smile turning cold. Why so sensitive? What? Your wife cheated, and that's not even your kid. The phone slid into the gap between the seats. I got to it before Andrew could and turned back to them. My voice steady. Even if you have money. That doesn't give you the right to humiliate people like this. Lillian looked me over, irritation flashing across her face. Mabel, since when are you the one to stand up for people? We let you be the floor wrap as a favor. And now you think you're something? My hand tightened at my side and I almost laughed. Last time I thought that counted for something. I thought they would at least tell the truth. Instead, they said I came on to Andrew. This time they would pay for everything I went through. Andrew picked up his phone and checked it. His expression dark. After a moment, he forced it down and gave us a strained, almost helpless smile. Sorry. That's the last picture I have of my son. I got a little carried away. Sadie shrieked and grabbed a tissue, wiping her hands like she had touched something dirty. He's dead. That's gross. Daphne pulled out a pack of wipes and handed it over. Her tone full of concern. Sadie. Are you gonna have nightmares tonight? Lillian shrugged. You'll be fine after some wine. I brought a bottle. It's really good. Oh, my God. You're the best. They went on talking as if nothing had happened. As if a child's death mattered less than whether they would sleep well. I caught the brief distortion in Andrew's expression. The off-road alerts kept coming. My phone buzzed non-stop, almost in rhythm with my heartbeat. I drew in a shaky breath, nerves tightening in the scramble. My fingers slipped, knocking it off silent. A second later, notifications started chiming. One after another filling the car. Andrew glanced at me, his eyes unervingly calm. I knew that look. It crawled under my skin. I had seen it too many times before. In memory, in dreams I couldn't shake. I looked away almost at once. Daphne leaned back and glanced out the window, frowning. Why are there fewer cars? Are you sure we're going the right way? Andrew gave a quiet chuckle. Both hands steady on the wheel. There's traffic up ahead. I'm taking a different route. After everything that had just happened. I thought they might at least be a little cautious. I was wrong. Lillian folded her arms. Still full of herself. At least you've got some sense. The other two nodded in agreement. This car stinks. We're not paying extra just because you want to take a longer route. Sadie said, waving a hand in front of her nose. Andrew didn't react. He kept driving. His tone even. Just change the destination in the app. I won't charge you for the rest. I paused at that. Then all three looked at me. Go on, cancel it. I tightened my grip on my phone. Catching the way. Their expressions softened at the thought of saving money. And knew it was finally time to get out. I'm not canceling. I didn't even look at them. Lillian stared at me. What's wrong with you? If you've got a problem, go get it checked. Stop acting like being broke is something to be proud of. It's embarrassing. Seriously. You're broke, stubborn. And you don't even know how to read the room. The others chimed in. Lillian kept tagging me in the group chat. What, you got money to burn? Do you even know how much it cost to get from the station to the hotel? Andrew glanced at me and smiled almost gently. Are you worried about safety? There are cameras everywhere now. Who's going to try anything? And besides, his eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Passing over the three of them. You're all rich girls. I wouldn't dare mess with you. Exactly. Like he'd be stupid enough to try anything with us. Lillian looked at me like I was the one who didn't get it. clearly satisfied. I almost laughed. Andrew had been driving here for years. He knew better than anyone where the cameras were. And how to avoid them. And the fake identities they had made up wouldn't scare him. If anything, it would push him further. But I wasn't going to warn them. No matter what you say, I'm not changing it. My voice didn't waver. That was enough to set Sadie off. If you won't change it, then get out. She pointed outside at the empty bridge. It's late. Let's see how you make it back. If you run into trouble, don't expect us to come help you. No matter what she said, I stayed put. The app gave its third off-route warning. Sadie laughed sharply. Mabel. This is on you. She kicked the back of Andrew's seat. Pull over. Andrew didn't respond right away. Just take her phone and change it. It's not safe for her to be out here alone this late. She kicked the seat again, harder this time. I said, pull over. Are you deaf? Lillian and Daphne leaned forward as well. Shoving at Andrew. The alert tones and Sadie's shouting blurred together. Filling the car. Then the brakes hit. Get out. Sadie threw the door open. Came around to my side, and yanked me out by the arm. Acting like you're better than us? Who do you think you are? Lillian got out right after and took my phone. Then she held the phone up. Smiling sweetly. Want it back? Before I could say anything, she tossed it into the river. Oops. She shrugged, her smile turning sharp. I stayed on the ground, watching them get back into the car like nothing had happened. Inside, Andrew's dark gaze lingered on me like he couldn't quite let it go. Lillian shut the door and told him to drive. He looked away and started the car. I watched as they pulled off. The tail lights fading into the dark. Beyond that point, there wouldn't be any cameras under the cover of night. I let a slow smile form. Get ready. It's coming. The red taillights of the ancient Honda faded into the murky darkness of the provincial boundary bridge, leaving behind nothing but the smell of cheap exhaust and the biting, damp wind of a midnight in May. Mabel stood frozen on the concrete walkway. The gravel under her sneakers felt sharp, a grounding reminder that this was not a dream. She was alive. She had returned. Her right hand was still empty, curled into a stiff claw where her primary phone had been just moments before Lillian had snatched it and tossed it over the railing. From far below, the silent, sluggish current of the river had swallowed it without a sound. But Mabel didn't cry. She didn't scream. Instead, she let out a slow, shuddering breath that bloomed into a pale mist in the cold air, and her lips curved into a quiet, icy smile. This time, you keep the car, she whispered to the empty road. She reached into the deep, zippered inner pocket of her oversized windbreaker. Her fingers closed around the matte plastic of a cheap, refurbished smartphone, a backup she had bought 3 days ago with her meager savings from her part-time tutoring job. She unlocked the screen. The battery was at 78%. On the screen, a small blue icon was blinking steadily. It was a cloud syncing application connected to her smartband, which was still snugly wrapped around her left wrist under her sleeve. The smartband was a budget model, but she had spent the entire previous night modifying its firmware. It didn't just track her heart rate, it had a high-sensitivity microphone designed for voice memos. From the very second they had stepped into Andrew Husted's Uber, the band had been recording the audio. Files were being compressed and uploaded in real time to a secure cloud drive via the backup phone's active hotspot, which she had kept hidden in the bottom of her backpack. She tapped the screen. The upload was complete. Every single word, every high-pitched sneer from Sadie, every sharp giggle from Lillian, every cruel insult directed at Andrew's deceased, albino son, was safely stored in 3 separate cloud servers. Mabel zipped her jacket up to her chin, slung her backpack over both shoulders, and began to walk. She didn't run. She didn't look back. She walked toward the toll station, situated 300 meters ahead at the end of the bridge. The brilliant, sterile glare of the sodium vapor lamps cast long, distorted shadows behind her. But for the first time in 2 lifetimes, she felt entirely in control. At the toll booth, a middle-aged security guard in a heavy blue coat was sipping tea from a thermos. He looked up, startled to see a young girl walking alone along the highway barrier at this hour. Miss? What happened? Did your car break down? He asked, sliding the glass window open. Mabel squeezed her eyes shut, forcing a sudden, convulsive sob to shake her shoulders. When she looked up, her eyes were red, her face pale, and her voice trembled with a terrifyingly authentic fear. Please. Please help me, she gasped, clutching the edge of the booth window. My roommates, they kicked me out of their Uber. They threw my phone into the river because I wouldn't help them delete the route. The driver. was acting so strange. He took off with them. I'm so scared. The guard's expression instantly hardened. He set his thermos down. An Uber? Did you get the license plate? Come inside, hurry. It's freezing out there. I have the receipt on my backup account, Mabel stammered, stepping into the warm, fluorescent-lit booth. She showed him the backup phone, displaying the active Uber ride screen. Look, the driver's name is Andrew Husted. The app is already showing 3 off-route alerts. They're heading toward the old Reservoir Road. Please, you have to call the police. She was laying the foundation. In her previous life, she had tried to save them. Only to be accused of being the driver's accomplice, of tempting him, of setting up her wealthy, innocent roommates. This time, she would be the very first to report the incident. She would be the traumatized victim of their bullying, left on a dark bridge to freeze, while they rode off into the dark with a man they had pushed past the brink of sanity. Inside the old Honda, the smell of cheap lavender air freshener was slowly being choked out by the sharp, metallic tang of fear. For the first mile after they had forced Mabel out of the car, Sadie, Lillian, and Daphne were in high spirits. They laughed as they recounted the look on Mabel's face when her phone spun through the air and plunged into the river. Did you see her? Lillian snickered, leaning back against the worn fabric of the seat. She looked like she was about to cry. Serves her right, acting like some kind of saint. He works hard to support his family, ugh, please. If she loves poor people so much, she can walk back to the city with them. She's probably walking back right now, Daphne said, though her voice lacked some of its previous heat. She glanced out the window. The streetlights had vanished. The road was narrow, flanked by dense rows of skeletal black poplars that seemed to lean over the car. Hey, where are we? This doesn't look like the highway to the resort. Sadie waved her hand dismissively. Who cares? The driver said he's taking a shortcut. Right, old man? She reached out and tapped the back of Andrew's seat with her designer handbag. There was no response. Andrew's hands were clamped onto the steering wheel at the 10-2 position. His knuckles were white, his skin stretched so tight over his hand bones that they looked like polished ivory. His eyes, reflected in the rearview mirror, were wide, unblinking, and fixed entirely on the dark ribbon of asphalt ahead. Hey. Are you deaf? Sadie's voice rose, a sharp, irritated note cutting through the cabin. I asked you a question. And turn on the heater. It's freezing in here. Andrew's lips twitched. He let out a soft, wet sound, something between a chuckle and a sigh. The heater is broken, he said. His voice was incredibly flat, devoid of the strained, submissive politeness he had used earlier. It sounded like dry leaves scraping across a concrete floor. Lillian frowned, her wealth-induced confidence turning into sudden annoyance. Then open the vents or something. This car is a piece of trash. If we get cold, we're going to give you a 1-star review and report you to the platform. My father knows the regional director of this app, you know. I can have your account banned by tomorrow morning. My son, Andrew whispered. The 3 girls fell silent for a fraction of a second, caught off guard. What did you say? Daphne asked, her brow furrowing. My son, Andrew repeated, his voice rising slightly, though his eyes never left the road. He steered the car hard to the left, turning onto a dirt track that led away from the Reservoir Road and deeper into the abandoned industrial district. The tires crunched violently over gravel and broken glass. You said. He looked like an alien. Oh, my God, are you still on about that? Sadie groaned, rolling her eyes. It was a joke. Why are poor people so sensitive? If your kid is dead, he's dead. It's not our fault. Besides, we're the customers. You don't talk to customers like this. He was 6, Andrew said. He didn't sound angry anymore. That was the most terrifying part. His voice was completely calm, carrying the heavy, dead weight of someone who had already decided his own fate. He had albinism. The neighborhood kids called him a monster. They threw rocks at him. But he was my boy. He was all I had left after my wife, after she realized how little money I made. He stopped the car. They were in the middle of an abandoned brick kiln yard. The towering, ruined chimney of the factory rose into the night sky like a jagged black finger. There were no lights, no passing cars, and no cameras. The only sound was the rough, irregular idling of the Honda's engine. Okay, this isn't funny anymore, Lillian said, her voice finally trembling. She grabbed the door handle and pulled. It didn't budge. Open the door, she demanded, her voice rising to a shriek. Open the door. Right now. Do you know who my father is? He'll put you in jail for the rest of your life. Andrew turned his head slowly. The cabin was dark, but the faint, green glow of the dashboard lights illuminated his face. His eyes were completely bloodshot. Tears streaming down his hollow cheeks, but his mouth was split into a wide, terrifying grin. Your father can't find you here, he whispered. No one can. He reached down, pulled a heavy, rusted tire iron from the gap beside his seat, and turned off the engine. The headlights died. The world went black. At the local district police station, the air smelled of stale tobacco, instant noodles, and damp coats. Mabel sat on a hard plastic chair, a thick, scratchy wool blanket draped over her shoulders. She held a paper cup of warm water in both hands, letting the steam rise into her face. Officer Zhang, a weather detective with deep creases around his eyes, sat across from her. He looked at the smartband audio file that Mabel had just transferred to his laptop. You're saying your roommates, Sadie Thornton, Lillian Clark, and Daphne Winthrop, forced you out of the vehicle because you refused to cancel the ride? Zhang asked, his pen hovering over his notepad. Yes, Mabel said, her voice small and tight. She squeezed her eyes shut, letting a single tear roll down her cheek. They were playing a game. They wanted to pretend they were rich girls from high society. They started insulting the driver's car, his clothes, his water. And then they found a picture of his deceased son on his phone. She paused, taking a shaky sip of water. They called the boy an alien. They said it was gross that he was dead. I tried to stop them. I told them that the driver was hurting, that he worked hard. But they turned on me. Lillian said I was a rural pig and that I didn't belong with them. They grabbed my phone, threw it over the bridge, and Sadie dragged me out of the car. They told the driver to keep going. Officer Zhang pressed play on the audio recording. The tiny speakers of his laptop filled the quiet room with the shrill, arrogant voices of the three girls. Wow, this kid's ugly. Looks like an alien. What's wrong with you? Can you even drive? Your wife cheated, and that's not even your kid. He's dead. That's gross. The detective's face grew darker with every passing second. Beside him, a younger female officer let out a sharp, disgusted breath. These girls. The young officer muttered under her breath, but Zhang silenced her with a look. And you have no way of contacting them now? Zhang asked. No. My phone is at the bottom of the river, Mabel said, her voice dropping to a whisper. But I have the backup phone. The Uber app was still active on my account when they threw me out. I didn't press cancel. I was too scared. But about 10 minutes ago, the app sent an alert saying the GPS signal was lost. Zhang stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the linoleum floor. We've already dispatched 2 patrol cars to the last known GPS coordinates near the old reservoir, he said, his tone grim. But that area is full of blind spots. The old brick factory and the chemical docks are completely abandoned. If he turned off the main road, it's going to take time to find them. Please find them, Mabel said, burying her face in her hands. To anyone watching, she was a picture of pure, guilt-ridden grief and terror for her friends. But behind her hands, her face was completely still. In her previous life, she had been the one trapped in that dark kiln. She remembered the cold iron of the tire iron, the smell of Andrew's unwashed clothes, the feeling of her hair being ripped from her scalp as she screamed for help that never came. She remembered her roommates lying to the police, claiming she had planned the whole thing to rob them. Now, she thought, you get to experience the shortcut you wanted so badly. The interior of the abandoned brick kiln was freezing. Water dripped from the cracked clay ceiling, landing with rhythmic, hollow taps on the damp dirt floor. Sadie was on her knees, her designer jeans ruined by mud and soot. Her face was swollen from crying, her nose running, her expensive makeup smeared across her cheeks like dirt. Please, she sobbed, holding her hands up in a pleading gesture. My dad has a construction company. I can get you 5 million yuan. 10 million. Just let us go. We won't tell the police. We promise. Andrew sat on a rusted iron oil drum a few feet away, holding the heavy tire iron in his lap. He was polishing it with a dirty rag, his movements slow, methodical, and calm. Money, Andrew said, not looking up. You think money fixes everything? When my Leo was sick, the hospital wanted a 50,000 yuan deposit before they would even admit him to the ICU. I begged. I knelt on the marble floor of the lobby and kissed the director's shoes. I told him I would pay him back, that I would work 3 jobs. He stopped polishing and looked at Sadie. His eyes were hollow, black pits. The director told me that if everyone was allowed to pay later, the hospital would go bankrupt. He told me to take my albino freak home and let nature take its course. He had a gold watch on his wrist. It looked just like the one your friend Lillian is wearing. Lillian gasped, instinctively tucking her left hand behind her back. She was huddled in the corner of the kiln, her body shaking so violently that her teeth clicked together. Daphne was next to her, silent, her eyes vacant with shock. We didn't mean it, Daphne whispered, her voice cracking. We were just playing. We wanted to look cool on social media. We're sorry. Please. We're so sorry. You called him an alien, Andrew said. His voice suddenly dropped to a harsh, guttural hiss. You said he was gross because he died. You laughed at him. He stood up. The rusted tire iron scraped against the floor. No. No. Please. Sadie shrieked, trying to crawl backward, but her foot caught on a pile of loose bricks, and she tumbled onto her side. Andrew took a step forward, but before he could raise the iron, the distant, echoing wail of a police siren pierced the night. The sound was faint, blocks away, but in the silence of the abandoned industrial zone, it sounded like a thunderclap. Andrew froze. His eyes flicked toward the narrow entrance of the kiln. The police. Lillian gasped, a sudden flare of hope lighting up her eyes. They're here. They're coming for us. Andrew's face twisted into a snarl of pure rage. He looked at the three girls. Then at the tire iron in his hand. He knew he didn't have much time. If he killed them now, he would be caught immediately. But he wasn't done with them. He wanted them to suffer the way he had suffered, slowly, publicly, and without mercy. You think they're going to save you? Andrew whispered, a dark, twisted idea taking root in his mind. Let's see what the world thinks of you first. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He didn't dial the police. Instead, he opened a social media app and logged into an account he had set up under a pseudonym months ago, an account dedicated to exposing the wealthy passengers who abused gig workers. Smile, he said, raising the phone's camera toward them. By 6 o'clock the next morning, the internet was already on fire. The search for the 3 missing university students had initially been reported as a standard kidnapping. But at 4:30 a.m., a video was uploaded to a popular video sharing platform. The video was short, dark, and shaky. It showed 3 girls cowering in a dirty, brick-lined room. Their faces were clearly visible. But it wasn't the image that shocked the public, it was the audio overlay. The uploader had spliced the video with the clear, high-quality audio recording Mabel had provided to the police, which had somehow leaked online via an anonymous proxy account Mabel had set up using the hostel's public computer 3 days prior. The contrast was devastating. One moment, the girls were heard mocking a dead 6-year-old child with albinism, bragging about their expensive carpets, and throwing a poor girl's phone into a river. The next moment, they were shown sobbing, begging for their lives, and offering millions of yuan to the very man they had just humiliated. The comment sections exploded. Are these the innocent victims the media was talking about? They sound like monsters. I have no sympathy for them. They literally drove this poor father insane. He lost his son, and they mocked his memory for fun. Look at them. Cowering. They thought their money could buy everything. Now they're begging the pig raiser and the poor driver for mercy. Who is the other girl they mentioned? Mabel? She's the real victim here. They threw her phone in the river and left her to freeze on a dark highway bridge just because she tried to defend the driver. By 8 a.m., the names of Sadie Thornton, Lillian Clark, and Daphne Winthrop were trending nationwide. The pressure on their families was instantaneous. At the Thornton residence, Sadie's mother, Victoria Thornton, was pacing her marble-floored living room, her face pale. Her phone was ringing non-stop. Reporters were already gathering outside their gated community. This is a conspiracy. Victoria screamed at her husband, who was frantically speaking to their corporate lawyers. Our Sadie would never say those things. That audio has to be fake. It's that scholarship girl, Mabel. She's the one who set this up. She's always been jealous of Sadie's background. The police are saying the audio is authentic, her husband said, his voice hollow. It was recorded from a smartband. The file has a digital signature that matches the timeline of the GPS data. And Victoria, the public doesn't care if it's fake or not. The shares in our construction company just plummeted 20% at the opening bell. The board of directors is calling an emergency meeting to remove me. We have to shift the blame. Victoria hissed, her eyes wild. Call the media. Tell them Mabel was the driver's accomplice. Tell them she lured Sadie into the car. She's from the countryside, her family raises pigs. It's easy to make people believe she did it for money. At 10 a.m., Mabel was summoned to the Dean of Students' office at Zhongqing University. The office was spacious, decorated with heavy mahogany furniture and green leather chairs. But today, the atmosphere was suffocating. Dean Sterling sat behind his desk, looking exhausted. Across from him sat Victoria Thornton, her designer coat draped over her shoulders like armor, and Lillian's father, Richard Clark, a prominent real estate developer whose company funded several of the university's research labs. Mabel stood near the door, her head bowed, her hands clasped loosely in front of her. She looked small, fragile, and utterly defenseless. Mabel, Dean Sterling began, his voice heavy with forced diplomacy. We understand you've been through a terrible ordeal. The university is deeply relieved that you are safe. However, we are facing a very complex situation. A complex situation? Victoria Thornton interrupted, standing up and pointing a manicured finger at Mabel. There's nothing complex about it. This girl is a liar and a thief. She conspired with that driver to kidnap our daughters. She stayed behind on that bridge to act as his lookout. She's the one who leaked that edited audio to destroy our families. Mabel didn't look up, but her shoulders trembled slightly. Mrs. Thornton. I didn't leak anything. I gave the recording to the police to help them find Sadie. I wanted to save them. Save them? Richard Clark sneered, his voice cold and commanding. If you wanted to save them, why did you record them in the first place? You planned this. You targeted our daughters because of their wealth. Dean Sterling, this girl's scholarship must be revoked immediately. She must be expelled and handed over to the police. Dean Sterling sighed, looking at Mabel with a mixture of pity and cowardice. He knew the university relied heavily on the donations of the Clark and Thornton families. Mabel, the dean said softly. Under the circumstances, and to protect the university's reputation during this ongoing investigation, we believe it is best for you to sign this voluntary withdrawal agreement. It will allow you to leave quietly, without a blemish on your official record. He slid a single sheet of paper across the desk. Mabel stared at the paper. In her previous life, she had signed a similar document, believing the dean's promise that it was for her own good. That signature had been her death warrant. It had stripped her of her student status, her dormitory, and her legal protection, leaving her defenseless against the public smear campaign that ultimately drove her to suicide. She slowly walked to the desk. She reached out and picked up the sleek, heavy fountain pen. Victoria Thornton let out a sharp, victorious breath. Mabel turned the pen over in her fingers. Then, she looked up. There was no fear in her eyes. No tears. No submission. There was only a cold, ancient calm that made Dean Sterling's breath catch in his throat. No, Mabel said. She set the pen down on the mahogany desk with a soft, solid clack. What did you say? Victoria gasped. I said no, Mabel repeated, her voice steady and clear. I will not withdraw. And I will not allow you to cover up what your daughters did. She reached into her backpack, pulled out her laptop, and opened it. She turned the screen toward the dean and the parents. This is the official portal of the Provincial Procuratorate, Mabel said, pointing to the screen. An hour ago, my pro bono legal counsel, funded by the National Legal Aid Association, filed a formal lawsuit against Sadie Thornton, Lillian Clark, and Daphne Winthrop for intentional destruction of property, public defamation, and physical endangerment. I have also submitted the complete, unedited 3-hour audio file from the night of the incident. You bitch. Victoria lunged forward, but Richard Clark caught her arm, his face turning a sickly shade of gray as he looked at the screen. And that's not all, Mabel continued, her voice entirely devoid of emotion. The audio file contains the exact moment Lillian admitted to bribing the university's academic affairs office to secure her guaranteed admission to the graduate school, the spot that originally belonged to me based on my exam scores. It's on page 42 of the transcript. The Ministry of Education has already opened an investigation into the university's admissions integrity. Dean Sterling stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. Mabel. Surely we can discuss this. There is nothing to discuss, Dean Sterling, Mabel said, closing her laptop with a crisp snap. In my life, I believed in the goodness of people. I believed that if I worked hard, kept my head down, and helped my roommates, I would have a future. But I was wrong. Some people don't see others as human. They see them as steps to be trodden on. She looked directly into Victoria Thornton's eyes. Your daughters chose to ride in that car. They chose to mock a grieving father. They chose to throw my phone in the river and leave me in the dark. Now, they have to pay the fare. At 4 p.m., the police finally located Andrew Husted's Honda. It was parked deep inside the abandoned brick kiln yard, half hidden by a collapsed corrugated steel roof. The car was empty, the keys still in the ignition. A K-9 unit tracked the scent to the main kiln chimney. When the tactical team breached the heavy iron door of the underground furnace room, they prepared themselves for a horrific scene of violence. But what they found was in some ways much worse. There was no blood. Sadie, Lillian, and Daphne were huddled together in the center of the dark, damp room. They were chained to a heavy steel structural pillar by their ankles, the locks secured with thick, industrial padlocks. Directly in front of them, mounted on a wooden tripod, was Andrew's phone. It was plugged into a heavy-duty power bank, its screen lit up, displaying a live feed of the social media comment section. Andrew had not touched them physically. Instead, he had forced them to sit in the dark for 16 hours, staring at the screen, watching the entire world dissect their characters, their families, and their crimes. They had watched as their parents' companies lost millions, as their addresses were leaked, as tens of thousands of strangers called them monsters, and as their own friends publicly disowned them online. Andrew himself was gone. He had left the phone behind, along with a handwritten note pinned to the tripod. The note read, "My Leo died in the dark because no one cared. Now, the whole world is watching. You don't need to die to know what hell feels like." When the police officers cut the chains, the girls didn't jump up or cry out in relief. They were completely catatonic. Sadie's eyes were fixed on the dusty ground, her lips moving in a silent, repetitive whisper, "I have money. I have money, please, my carpets." Lillian was clutching her stomach, dry heaving into the soot. Daphne simply stared at the ceiling, her face entirely blank, her mind shattered by the absolute, public destruction of her entire existence. As they were carried out on stretchers, the flashes of a dozen press cameras pierced the evening gloom. The images of the three rich girls, filthy, broken, and exposed, were uploaded to the internet within seconds, cementing their ruin. In the weeks that followed, the downfall of the three families was swift and merciless. The investigation into the university's graduate admissions revealed a massive web of corruption. Richard Clark had indeed paid over 2 million yuan in donations to secure Lillian's spot. The academic dean was dismissed, and several university officials were placed under criminal investigation. Lillian was officially expelled, her academic records annulled. The public backlash against the Thornton Construction Company was so severe that several state-owned enterprises canceled their contracts overnight. Facing bankruptcy and a mountain of lawsuits, Victoria Thornton was forced to sell their mansion and all their luxury assets to pay off their debts. They went from high society elites to social pariahs in less than a month. Daphne Winthrop's family, attempting to distance themselves from the scandal, sent Daphne abroad to a remote clinic in Northern Europe to receive long-term psychiatric care. She would never return to Zhongcheng. Andrew Husted surrendered to the police 3 days after the incident. Because he had not physically harmed the girls and had been subjected to extreme psychological provocation, and because public sympathy was overwhelmingly in his favor, his defense team was able to secure a significantly reduced sentence for unlawful confinement. His wife, who had tried to leak Mabel's personal information online, was sued by Mabel for defamation and invasion of privacy. With the evidence of Mabel's smartband audio showing Mabel had actually defended Andrew and his family, the court ordered the wife to pay substantial damages, leaving her bankrupt and legally barred from approaching Mabel or her family. The midsummer sun was warm and golden, casting a brilliant glow over the rolling green hills of the Jiangxing countryside. Mabel stood in the courtyard of her family's small farm. The air didn't smell like manure, as Sadie had so cruelly claimed. It smelled of wild clover, damp earth, and the sweet, rich scent of ripening peaches from the orchard behind the house. Her mother, healthy and vibrant, was sitting on a wooden bench under the shade of a large walnut tree, shelling peas into a wicker basket. Her face was peaceful, her chest rising and falling in a steady, healthy rhythm. "Mabel," her mother called out, smiling as she looked up. The university called again. "They said your graduate school admission has been officially reinstated. They want to know if you need assistance with the dormitory arrangements for the fall semester." Mabel walked over and sat down beside her mother, leaning her head against her shoulder. The warmth of her mother's skin was the most precious thing in the world, a treasure she had almost lost forever. "I told them I'll handle it myself, Mom," Mabel said softly. "I don't need their help anymore." She reached into her pocket and pulled out her new phone. It was a simple Functional model, but it was paid for entirely with the compensation money she had received from the Clark and Thornton families. She opened her email. There was a notification from the Provincial Department of Education. Her scholarship had been upgraded to a national first class fellowship, fully funding her research for the next 3 years. She looked up at the blue sky, watching a flock of white birds circle over the green valley. In her last life, she had died in the dark, a victim of others' cruelty and her own naive kindness. She had learned the hard way that sometimes, trying to smooth things over only invites the wolves to bite harder. This time, she had let the fire burn. She had let the guilty consume themselves in the flames of their own making, while she stood in the cool, safe shadows, waiting for the dawn. The peaches are going to be very sweet this year, her mother murmured, her hand gently stroking Mabel's hair. Yes, Mabel agreed, closing her eyes and breathing in the warm, clean air. They really are.